This $50 pen has one of the largest nibs I've ever seen. It's just enormous. Large nibs have traditionally been associated with high-end luxury pens that cost thousands of dollars. Think Montblanc 149, Sailor King of Pen, Pilot Custom Urushi. A few years ago, we started seeing large nibs in affordable pens as well. Steel, of course, but still. Jinhao's 9019 really made waves 2 years ago. Then other Chinese brands like Moonman jumped on the bandwagon, and even Indian pen makers like Magna Carta. This, however, might be the largest one so far. The pen is called Junlai 930. A cigar-shaped version was released a few months ago, and this flat-top version came out just a few weeks ago. So what's Junlai? Well, some of you long-time pen enthusiasts might remember the Frank Underwater blog. That was the place for us fountain pen geeks to get a scope on new Chinese pen brands and models back in the day. In 2017, Frank published an article that explained what happened to the venerable Wingsung label. In short, the company fell on hard times and was acquired by another Chinese pen maker, Hero, which in turn eventually licensed the Wingsung brand to others. One of the licensees was Shanghai Green Stationery, which, according to this post, also runs a pen retailer called Junlai. Shanghai Green's pens really shook up the pen world a few years back. It all kicked off with a Wingsung 698, called the first modern Chinese piston filler. After that, Green rolled out several popular models like the retro-cooled 601 pump filler, the 601A with its inlaid nib, the 618 and others. From what I can tell, Shanghai Green's license to the Wingsung brand expires soon, so the company is now transitioning to its own Junlai brand instead. So back to the pen. Let's do some nib comparisons. This Junlai 930 nib is bigger than a Montblanc 149 nib. It is bigger than a Sailor King of Pen nib. It's also bigger than a Pilot Custom Urushi nib. In fact, it's about the same size as Pilot's flagship Namiki size 50 nib, which is just bonkers. Now what about the rest of the pen? Well, I wouldn't call it a direct copy of anything, but let's just say Junlai seems to have looked to Hamburg for inspiration. The ink window, the nib stamp, and even the feed design, they all have a rather familiar look to them. Still, there's a lot to like here. The cap finial is pretty stylish, with the first character of the Junlai name engraved on it. The piston is surprisingly smooth, and this particular colorway in ivory and black with silver trims looks great, I think. Pens that have huge nibs can be difficult to fill up when your ink bottle is running low, but not this one. Just like with Platinum's Procyon, you don't have to dunk the entire feed into the ink to get a fill. It's enough to submerge the breather hole. Another Chinese pen blogger, Shanghai Knife Dude, calls this feature low ink refill. The pen is not without its problems though. The broad nib on my particular pen seems to have been a bit too smoothed out at the factory. I'm getting a bit of skipping when I write, especially on smoother paper. Now this is usually fixable, and to be fair, I haven't seen any other reports of this problem, so perhaps I just drew the short straw. Oh, by the way, quick side note, this is Yamamoto Paper's new bullet jotter. It holds 2 Bible-sized notepads. Yamamoto also sells pads with all sorts of interesting paper, and since they're Bible-sized, you can punch holes in the pages and pop them into your system planner later. I might do a full review of this bullet jotter down the line. Anyway, back to the pen again. Another thing to keep an eye on is potential ink leakage. I've seen some reports of ink seeping out from the section. Personally, I haven't had that issue with this flat top version, and it's possible that it's more of a thing with a cigar-shaped model, but it's something to be aware of. So the pen has its flaws, but if you're itching to try out a truly massive nib without having to spend thousands on something like a Namiki or a Tomo, then this Junlai 930 is something to consider. I snagged this one from an Etsy seller for a bit under $50. Prices for these pens tend to fluctuate, so it's always a good idea to compare prices on AliExpress, Temu, Amazon, Etsy, and all those usual online spots. Alright, that's the Junlai 930. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or giving the video a thumbs up. As always, thanks for watching.